This is going to be the first video where I feel like I'm doing this for the first time. Like I'm standing in front of a camera and trying to speak to something and someone. For some reason, one day when I was, I would have been 10, I was sitting down and watching TV. The news was playing, right? I see various clips of Robin Williams. I see the genie from Aladdin. Oh, I wonder what Robin Williams is doing. This just in. Robin Williams has a severe addiction to rope. And you're just sitting there and you're saying, whoa, this is the first celebrity I've had attachment to. It may not even be necessarily attached to Robin Williams because I watched that many movies of him by the time I was 10. It was more just like, I was told that he was funny. He was the definition of funny. And like, if you want to think funny, you would think Robin Williams. And now he did the unfunniest thing. And depending, at the time, it was the unfunniest thing he could do as a comedian. After all this time, I'm still trying to figure out, you know, like, I don't really know why he's dead. You know, I don't think anybody really does. You know, on a technical basis, people know why he's dead, but people don't really know why he's dead. But we can be grown-ups here. There's been people, maybe someone you've watched on YouTube who has just... I can call this my eulogy video, but it's also probably going to be my most uncomfortable, for me at least. Isn't that right, little corporation man? He's gonna try to clap his hands. He's my audience. So for some reason, when I was 4 years old or something, like when I was way too young, I developed a philosophy of there are two deaths in your life. One is when you're physically dead, and the second is when someone utters your name for the last time. That's been a thing that's existed, but for some reason, I thought of that when I was 5 or 6. And it makes me think about fame and why people do fame. The most basic one is doing it for wealth, doing it for the money, or at least to get out of a bad situation. Not everyone is greedy. Some people actually just want to like not live in a trailer. But then you get above and beyond that, and like if thousands of people are going to look at you, why do you want them to look at you? Do you want to express how genuine you are as a person? Do you want to get a message across? Like, what do you actually want to do once people are looking at you? And in some sense, people aspire to achieve fame on the internet just to show people that they exist or that they're real. How do you prove to people that you're real? And once you prove yourself to be real, what happens when your realness has a deadline? You prove to everyone that you're real, that you exist, and everyone either knows you or the people that do know you trust you more than the average other person. But then one day you're just, the obvious eeriness of anyone who passes away is like the last time they existed, and that gap only gets larger and larger. At some point, it just kind of becomes indifferential. James Dean died tragically, but how long has he been dead? It's easier to cope with that fact. Then there's just like some channels where they died so prematurely, and you look and it says 10 years ago, and there's just this sinking feeling in your stomach where, and you know, you want to frown at the fact that's happened. What else are you gonna do? You're gonna be, I remember when this guy died. I remember when this guy fucking died. One day he was living, one day he was dead. That's Levine. Yeah, sometimes it just happens. I don't want to say it just happens. Sometimes, yeah, it's very sudden. So many years will go by and there's still no proper way to react to it. You should be doing something to deal with the death of something, but like how? How do you do that? The more years that go by, the more you just feel like something should be done to accommodate for how you feel about someone. I'll start with, oh yeah, these are stress toys. Maybe I should, yeah, a little stress cinder block. Like, I remember just seeing Technoblade appear one day. I remember seeing a video where he did like a mock-up Hunger Games. However long later, I saw him be really good at Minecraft against other YouTubers and so on and so forth. You see this guy go from 1 million, 5 million to 10 million dead. Cancer. The good thing about death is that it's objective, and to those of us who are living, we feel the same when someone dies like this. Technoblade had the fortune of being a very objective death, a very unfortunate circumstance. Ultimately, I feel like he achieved what he wanted before he died. He made enough money for his family, he got a huge following, he has the legacy. Generally, as deaths go, he had it pretty well by the end. The whole age thing, that kind of you know, that really burns, but it's very easy to look on the bright side of how he passed away. Don't get me wrong, it's still sad that this happened to him, and I'm about to give a 3-hour video essay on why Technoblade dying from cancer is sad. He's in good hands. He had a lot of support. The only really sour apple was just that big lump of cancer. Ultimately, what gave him his legacy was just being genuine. It was someone who knew how to craft a style around their personality, but still be very accessible to everyone, which is, I don't think people took it for granted, but they don't understand just how improbable that is to achieve, let alone a channel with over 10 million.
Bro, I'm dead. A stone axe, Technoblade just pooped on me.
Ultimately, if you watch someone, you'll know if they're inspired by him or not. There's only so much you can do about cancer. You're gonna miss him. You at least know it's nobody's fault. But what happens when you can say someone could have been murdered by the internet? This is the Etika part of the video. I didn't watch Etika, but I watched him die. I knew who he was, I knew what he did, I knew he was a streamer, I knew if he was still alive, he'd be the biggest streamer right now. But when it comes to actually watching him, I only watched him die. I watched a few like Etika archives just to kind of refresh myself on all of it, really. Not to compare death to death, because, you know, obviously all deaths are unique. They definitely don't end the same. But to compare Etika to Technoblade, I mean, if you know, you know, but if you don't know, the whole thing with Etika, I don't know if it was bipolar or borderline personality, or if it was just a combination of a lot of that. I watched his last video, his last video to prepare for this. I never realized how much clarity he had, like, the day he died. I'll put it like this, there was so much clarity. I don't remember him having that much clarity before he died. Or I feel like if I was there talking to him, I really don't know how I would convince him to stay alive. I'm just being honest. I don't know how I would have talked him out of it. The only real gap in his way of thinking before he died was that he considered himself to be alone. Like, I'm not psychic, I'm not communicating with Etika right now. You can only make assumptions and theories and, you know, a bunch of people saying, oh, Keemstar killed Etika. It's such a fucking insane conclusion to jump to because of one interview. Like, every single comment on like a Etika archival video is talking about how toxic the chat is. Or I think what gets me most about his last video is that he's still the same. He's at a point of no return in that video, but he's still himself. I think that's why Etika will ultimately prevail in terms of having a legacy, is that one of the goals I have as a creator is authenticity. I want to be authentic. That's why I'm talking about death. I want to be authentic about it, and no one's going to be more authentic than Etika. He was literally faced with the curtain of death. Like, he was literally faced with death, and he was still himself. I really don't know how many people can do that. Just going back and rewatching everything he was in, it was easy to forget he died. That's what I want to be. Like, there's people where their legacy on the internet is that they're dead. I think we've all watched channels before where we watched them because they're dead. We watched Jew Wario because he was dead. I feel like a good goal as an entertainer when you die is that when someone's watching you, you don't feel dead to them.
What the fuck was that? God.
It's a really weird, but like, my two favorite comedians are dead. Patrice O'Neal is dead, Norm Macdonald's dead, although I did like watch him while he was alive, but he's dead. But when I watch both of them, I'm not watching them like, oh, they're dead. Like, when you hear someone that sounds alive enough and like their personality shines so much, you just don't realize that like they're a skeleton. Their body went past the bloating and all that. You don't watch them because they're dead. Like, you can watch them of their personality. You can get so absorbed by it and take so much away from it, even though they have nothing left to give. You can still take away so much from who they are and what they did and how they think. How they thought. Like, for example, like I was watching Juice and seeing Tupac act, and I didn't realize just how good he was of an actor. And not a single time when I was watching the movie did I think, oh man, he's such a good actor. It's a shame he's dead though. When you watch him or listen to him while he's alive, you're not constantly weeping over his corpse. You're celebrating his life. You rewatch Etika, you're celebrating his life, and the same for Technoblade. You come there to remember it and maybe pay your respects, but ultimately you're there to celebrate who he was. Which leads me to Twomad. Twomad, more like Nomad. Twomad is definitely the most conflicting creator death. Everyone's knee-jerk reaction to Twomad dying was to celebrate and, you know, cheer and go, whoa! And it's easy to do that because of allegations, and he left a bad taste in everyone's mouth by the time he died. And, you know, for research, I was looking at Twomad's last moments before he died. Like, specifically the last stream, I don't think it was proven that what he did was intentional. If he did, he left a similar note the same way Etika did, although way less poetic. If his legacy is being the most authentic internet personality, that no matter what happened, he was 100% himself, and he tried to persevere. Twomad's the opposite. He was the most inauthentic YouTuber. Like, his channel wasn't, you know, like a kid's channel, but his personality, everyone talking about him said, I didn't know him very well. He was very shut off. He was kind of an ass to me. That's what everyone has to say about Twomad. What I have to say about Twomad, I don't know, because I really didn't watch him. Before he died, I did watch the last video he uploaded, which was him, Oompaville? It was him responding to a commentary video of him. That really does summarize all we know about him. Because there really isn't a lot that people know. Like, people didn't get to know him. He didn't show himself.
Yeah! Destroy, look at this face!
I'm gonna say allegedly. He allegedly did really horrible stuff. And again, it leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth by the time he died. Whereas Etika felt alone before he died, Twomad was actually alone. Like, again, his last stream, it's a polar opposite to what Etika presented to people before he died. Not everyone's gonna go out with a bang. Not everyone's meant to. It doesn't make a whimper any easier to see. It's a tragedy in the sense that, what if death came up to me and told me I had 3 years left to live, right? It's almost a cosmic horror to see someone die absolutely unloved. Obviously, he has a family and they loved him very much, I hope. When it comes down to everyone I've heard talk about him, no one loved him. No one even liked him. He really did die alone, and he was very self-assuring in that before he died. More than anything, Twomad feels the most like a restless spirit. I really don't think anyone has come to terms with what happened. I understand people express shock in different ways. Some people try to be edgy about a death because that's their way of expressing shock, and some people, they cry in shock. But ultimately, when someone dies, there isn't a clear given path on how to react. Some ways to respond are better than others in a social environment, but there isn't an easy way to react to, you know, a demise. You know, some people really do just die alone. When you eventually die, because I'm assuming eternal life will not be provided, if you really do want to take inspiration from these YouTubers, take inspiration from how they fucking died. Like, do you want your death to be a PSA commercial and that's all your death is known for, is that you're a statistic from smoking or whatever? Or do you really want to make a change? You have the opportunity to make change. As much as I would love to celebrate his death and shoot confetti in the air and, you know, whatever Twitter did for like 3 days straight, I can't help but see the tragedy of it. I'm sorry. People can express their shock however they feel the need to. Don't get me wrong, but there is really just a sick feeling inside me, like physically. Like, I can't control it. I feel sick when I think about just... Maybe I'm trying to find a way to right his wrongs. I at least want something good to come from his life beyond being an example of what to not do. And I don't know what the answer to that is. I really don't know how to do that. I can just say, oh, you know, before you die, don't be like Twomad. I can say that about, you know, serial killers and stuff too. Like, you know, I don't really feel empty when I think about Technoblade's death. I don't feel this sense of dread wash over me every time I see him. I wish I could sit down and think more about what I want to say, but then I would be out of frame. Let me think about Patrice O'Neal. Whenever I hear Patrice O'Neal, I forget he's dead. I guess when you die, what you want to achieve is people to have good memories of you. All you can hope for is that you create a net positive to society. I'll be honest too, it's pretty easy to do that. The people who are net negatives to society are like super outliers. Like, when they fuck up, they... Imagine if my mustache went to here, right? Like, he set the bar so low on what it meant to be a good person that so many people got redeemed because of him. Like, before Hitler, there was probably so many people that could be considered scumbags, but then Hitler came along, he He killed so many people that it's just like, maybe this other guy ain't so bad. He forgot to wear his belt to church, but you know what? That's fine now. How do you create a net positive to society? Truth be told, I think it's being very transparent with people. Being a good person doesn't just mean you give people good feelings and good thoughts. You can be a good person and make people very uncomfortable, but it depends on how you make them uncomfortable. Giving them new emotions to feel is a lot more beneficial to society than making them uncomfortable by like staring really aggressively at them. If you make people uncomfortable by giving them new emotions to feel, they have a larger spectrum of life to live now. That's at least the inspiration I get from people who died before me. They've created so many new emotions within me and so many new ways of thinking. I shaped up a lot because of dead people.
Don't let no one stop you, all right? You're driven. The energy that you need, the drive you need to get it, you pull that from yourself. Because when you pull it from yourself, no one can influence it. Just you. I'm here.
So just because you're dead doesn't mean you can't do anything, but I would recommend you to stay alive so you can make the change you wish to see in the world. I guess in a twisted, inadvertent way, Twomad has helped me feel that, because can you guess why this video is being made? I saw people celebrating his death on Twitter and it gave me a new feeling I didn't know how to describe. So this is me trying to describe it right now, trying to figure it out. I feel like there are good ways to figure out how to celebrate life. I'm one of those people who get disturbed socially when... I'm not one of those people who can talk about sports 10 minutes after we buried someone, like their casket is going down into the dirt, right? In a way, you can prepare for your death, and you can prepare for the death of others. Not just by like talking about cars and shit when someone is buried, but being aware of what they have contributed to the human memory. Now that I've tackled a difficult topic to talk about, I feel like every video I'm gonna make after this is going to be so much easier to do. So I just want to say thank you to Mad.